Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now redubbed by Disney, or current Lucasfilm, whatever you want to say. Legends. So today, we have Tatooines Ghost. So the interesting thing about Tatooines Ghost, it's written by Troy Denning. If you heard that, I'm really freaking sorry. Let me say again. So, this book is written by Troy Denning. However, this book was written after the New Jedi Order series. But it takes place before the Thrawn trilogy. In fact, up next we have the Thrawn trilogy. But what happened is that you have, at this point we've had, I don't know if episode 3 was out, at the very least we had episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and episode 2, Attack of the Clones, come out. So we had these two movies. And Troy Denning decided, let's make a story about Leia finding out about her grandmother. So, for non-spoilers, this book is really hit or miss, at least for me, though I always recommend that you check it out for yourself. It's not super interesting for a good portion of it. I found myself kind of bored. Not as bored as I was during Allegiance or Choices of One. Still bored. Now, the difference is whenever it had to do with the prequels and Leia was learning about Anakin or Shmi, I was having a good time with it. Also, we have Anakin's Rodian friend that was in a shot of the movie, of the first movie. And, like, all of that is cool. The overall plot, because this takes place pretty close to the Thrawn trilogy, because what you would read right after this would be the Thrawn trilogy, but Leia's trying to get this rare Alderaanian art, as you would imagine Alderaan art would be hard to come by because the planet exploded. But it's not only just because of that. There's a secret thingy within it, so that way it can help the New Republic or whatever, and we didn't know about it. And also Thrawn wants it. We never actually see Thrawn in this book, but Pelion is mentioned once, and, you know, if you know anything about Thrawn, if you know anything about the Thrawn trilogy, I do know stuff about the Thrawn trilogy. I haven't read it yet, but I know that he's kind of an art freak. He likes art, and he wants to paint it. So it's like a race to get it. There's no Luke, there's no anyone else. This is purely just Chewbacca and C-3PO over there, but it's not really about them. It's mainly Han and Leia, though mostly about Leia, and the whole kind of thing about this book is to fix a minor thing that wasn't really addressed or fixed in books that we'll read later on, because in a Truce at Korra, Leia had daddy issues, and it never really got resolved, you know? We're 5 years later, and she's still kind of hung up about that, so this is meant to, like, you know, let her reconcile her family heritage, and let her reconcile other things, and finally let her be able to move on. It's a very small story in comparison. Nothing really dangerous is going on. Like, yeah, Han and Leia could die, but, you know, they're not going to die, so it's, like I said, it's pretty hit or miss. For me, there is not a lot of, at least from what I've read so far, and I think for a lot of the stuff, I think the only other time stuff might get mentioned, I don't know if New Jedi Order will, because I haven't read it yet, but I don't think there's a lot of times where a direct mention of the prequels is mentioned. So to have a story that actually, like, implements stuff from the prequels and have, you know, the original characters, like, acknowledge that and talk about that and reflect on that, I think is really cool. Like I said, then you have the other parts where it's just like, oh, typical adventure. Like, this book wouldn't work as a movie. I feel it would work as, like, an extended Clone Wars episode. Like, instead of 30 minutes, it's 50 minutes. So still less than an hour. But, like, you know, just like a short little thing. And that would work fine. Just like a novel, I don't know. I think the best way to figure out if you might want this book is if you are, if you like the prequels and you're interested to see how thoughts and interactions might happen between original characters with prequel stuff, then this might be for you. Also, if you liked Shmi, the mother of Anakin Skywalker, as a character, and you wanted to know more about her and what happened to her in between episode 1 and 2, this book might be up your alley. But otherwise, it is a very hard skip. But anyway, that's it for non-spoilers. I'm gonna review my notes now. So, first note, it's been 6 months since the courtship of Princess Leia. So they've been married for 6 months now, and that's awesome. My other note is that she's Leia Organa solo now. It just makes me happy. Chewie is an honorary family member, and you know, the way it's written, I just like that Leia's like, yeah, you know, I know that marrying Han, that, you know, Chewie would inevitably become like an honorary family member. The Thrawn ship is here. I haven't read the Thrawn trilogy yet. That's up next. But I have, you know, I read Allegiance and Choices of One, and the Chimera is there, or whatever it's called. So the ship's there, and Pellion's mentioned, because I don't think Thrawn's even here right now. He's doing other stuff, but Pellion's here trying to get the art because Thrawn wants it. And as I already said, they're trying to get a rare piece of art from Alderaan. Oh yeah, it's really funny. So Han disguises himself as a Devorian. That's the like devil-looking thing that you see in Episode 4. And Leia as a blue Twi'lek. I'm surprised there's no fan art of Leia as a Twi'lek. I looked it up. Couldn't find one. Would have been interesting. What's his name? Kickster, something like that. There's a Rodian that was friends with Anakin from the prequels when he was growing up, and he's, you know, a lot older now because, you know, Anakin was like an old guy, so this guy's old too, and he has this place where they like sell things, and Leia sees like a holo cube of Anakin as a boy winning the pod race. She doesn't realize at this point that it's her dad, but it was really cool. Han and Leia, sorry, there's just things that I kind of wrote while I was reading it. So, Han and Leia have been together for 8 years now. But they've been 6 months married. 6 months married. And I just said makes me happy. Oh, big time daddy issues. Wrote daddy issues because once she finds out that that little boy is her dad, she realizes that's Darth Vader, and I hate him, and he's evil, and oh my goodness, all this and all of that. And it's all because she hasn't resolved the issues she's had with her dad since Truce at Bakor, which, remember, takes place like literally a day after Episode 6. She has not been able to forgive her father. She's stuck with this anger and this hatred toward him all these years, and she hasn't let it go. But later on, Leia learns that Anakin was a slave, and that, you know, starts to kind of tear down what she thought. And she even calls Luke at one point. I didn't actually write this down, but I just remembered. And it's always nice to see him. But she's like, I don't get it. He was like a slave and stuff, and he's like, did you expect him to be a helmet wearing dude from the womb? He was just a boy here, Leia. He turned into something evil, but he didn't come out that way. So I just thought that was really interesting. So I wrote down that Leia is scared at the idea of having kids. And to top that off, she's also, scared of facing her heritage, of her past, of who she is. And so that's something that needs to be resolved. And also, yeah, I was just kind of like randomly mentioned that Gavin Darklighter owns Luke's old farm. What? The guy from Rogue Squadron? Why? So Leia gets these data things that are like Shmi's journals, diaries. And we get to see Shmi and Watto again, which is really nice to see Watto. Young Annie, freaking dude, I love him. He may be a slaver, but he's a nice slaver. And Shmi starts mentioning things about Qui-Gon from episode 1, like Qui-Gon directly is named in this book, which means that Leia heard that, which is just really cool. She talks about like how she misses Anakin because he got taken away, and she knows that she can't reach him because now that he's part of the Jedi Order, she's not allowed to talk to him. I wrote that it's nice to hear more about Shmi because she didn't get much screen time in those movies, but she was really good for what she had to do. I felt she was one of the best parts of episode 1. And that scene in episode 2, regardless of how I feel about episode 2, that scene was hard to watch because she did a good job in that scene. I wrote down that Watto did care for Annie, and I did write down Annie specifically instead of Anakin. Because he's lonely now. And it's so weird because he is a slaver, but I don't feel that he ever felt that Anakin was property. He had a very weird fatherly sort of dynamic with him. And he's just been kind of melancholy ever since he's left. And I just thought it was nice to see that because when you watch episode 2, I mean, presumably Watto lost his job because he's not at the place that he used to be. But maybe he didn't, I don't know. But when Anakin shows up with Padme, he seems so genuinely happy to see him. I did write down, though, a good portion of this book is boring, but I already talked about that, so I won't drain on that again. Shmi talks about meeting Owen's dad and stuff, and how Owen reminds her of Anakin, not because he acts a lot like Anakin, but just because they're around the same age. And so that was actually kind of sad. And my last note, Han learned the prophecy. So Han starts talking to Leia, and he's talking about, like, maybe Shmi was right, maybe he was meant to destroy evil. Maybe not in the way that Shmi thought he would, but without him, the Emperor would still be around. He's the one who killed the Emperor. He did, not Luke. It was Anakin. And it wasn't Darth Vader in that moment either, it was Anakin. And Leia's like, what? You forgive him even after he froze you in carbonite? And he just said, I'm just saying that maybe he was meant, maybe he was always meant to save the galaxy. Just not in the way that anybody intended. I can't do it justice. You'd have to read the book to know. But I really like that scene. But that's pretty much it. Leia's now at peace with her father. She's reconciled that. Doesn't necessarily like her father, but she's not angry at him anymore. She's moved on. As for her being scared about kids, as we know in the next book. And if you don't know, I won't. I mean, it's not really a big spoiler, but she's gonna have kids. And a lot of stuff will happen to those kids. And we'll get to that when we get to that. But, yeah. Overall, it's such a mixed bag. There is a lot of things in here that I really love. A lot of small moments between these characters I love. And I love the development with Leia. It wasn't necessarily needed, but I appreciate the fact that it's there. The overall plot is kind of boring and kind of a drag. But I think it's still worth the time. Just my personal opinion. Is it the best book out there? No. No. Definitely should not be your first book into the expanded universe, for sure. But I do think it's interesting. It's one of the few books, too, where the prequels are, like, directly mentioned. And you have the original trilogy characters commentating on it. And that's just, it's really cool, because you don't get that often. Anyway, next up is the gospel of the expanded universe. We have the Thrawn trilogy. So I hope you're all excited for that. And I will see you in the next video. See you next time.